Welcome to this week's Riks Europe Roundup. And I think it's going to be a very exciting week to reflect on because, of course, Sunday we had the elections. We finally know what the new European Parliament looks like. And to get a better understanding of the results, with me today in the studio is Peter Klepp, and he's the editor in chief of this channel. Peter, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Scarlett.
So I think the first question that all of us want to know, like, how did the right-wing parties perform during these elections?
All in all, they advanced, not as much as the opinion polls had predicted. For example, in Scandinavia, the result was not so good. In Portugal, the result was not so good. But specifically in France, the populist right-wing party of Marine Le Pen had twice as many votes as the party of the French president, Emmanuel Macron. And we really had a massive consequence of that. Macron, he immediately announced snap elections for the French parliament that will be held, at the end of this month. And this is very important because it's a small chance, but there is a chance that as a result of that, the party of Marine Le Pen may deliver the new French prime minister. That would be Jordan Bardella. If that happens, this has major consequences for the European Union because in the French system, the distribution of powers between the prime minister and the president is not very clear. So you may see them fighting at the EU level over who is really responsible.
Before we continue talking about the upcoming French elections, which I think was probably the biggest shock after the results came in, is that you said there were some certain countries where right-wing parties didn't perform well. You mentioned, for example, Scandinavian countries, Sweden, but also Portugal. What could be a reason that they underperformed?
Well, in Sweden, what I was told is that the turnout among the right-wing voters was very low. And of course, this has a major effect then if only the left-wing voters turn up. Then in Portugal, you had, it's interesting because normally the populist right-wing parties, they do very well in European Parliament elections and not so well in the national elections when it matters more. People are a bit more, afraid to vote for them, to give, let's say, a anti-system signal. But in Portugal, the opposite happened. The Chega party, they did very well in the national elections recently in spring. But then in the European Parliament elections, they had, I think, only half of their votes. They lost a lot of votes, and apparently that's because of the fact that they have been perceived to be arrogant after their victory. That's what I read. So yeah, it's always difficult, I guess, to explain these kind of results. But also in Hungary, you could see that Orban, who had a very big result in the recent parliamentary elections, he did not very well in the European Parliament elections. You could see that his party has been in power for so long that they are sort of losing their touch with voters, I think. At least that's what some Hungarian observers have said.
It's a shame because it means that they were actually responsible themselves for not achieving the desired results. But France, on the other hand, like Marine Le Pen, they had a monster victory. They had even a double amount of votes compared to Macron. And then he announced that he's going to dissolve the parliament. Is this a smart decision, or did he make the worst decision in his life? Like, could this mean that it's the end for Macron?
Well, everybody says it's a gamble, but I think, he really had to do this. He did not have a majority in parliament anyway. So basically his prime minister, Mr. Attal, is the majority is dependent on the center-right opposition party. So of course for Macron this was a very difficult situation. Once in a while he had to, bypass parliament. Constitutionally that is possible in specific cases, but this made him even more unpopular than he already is. So I think at one point he had to call, the early elections, and he was probably thinking, look, why don't I do it now? because maybe there will be so much surprise that my opponents will make mistakes. And he's not completely wrong, because if you look at the center-right, we have seen like a very strange spectacle this week. The leader of the center-right party, Eric Ciotti, he announced an alliance with Marine Le Pen's national rally for these snap elections. Now, most politicians of his party did not agree with him. So what happens is that the board, they deposed Ciotti. They fired him. Ciotti disputes that they have the legal power to do that. There's a lawsuit ongoing. We'll have to see what the outcome of this is. But Ciotti, he also he still keeps control of the social media of the center-right party, Les Républicains. He has barricaded himself in the headquarters of the party, which is also interesting, and people are making fun of that, of course. And then there's another right-wing party led by Eric Zemmour, and they're sort of the opposite. They're the leader of the party, Eric Zemmour. He does not want an alliance with Marine Le Pen, but sort of the other people in the party, the other important politicians, including Marion Maréchal Le Pen, who's the niece of Marine, they want an alliance. So Eric Zemmour, he just kicked out all of them, all of the newly elected MEPs, apart from one, which happens to be his girlfriend. Of course, he couldn't kick out his own girlfriend. So it's complete chaos on the right. On the left, they have managed for now to form some kind of an alliance. But maybe we'll see a fight breaking out there at one point as well.
Is there a reason why Zemmour doesn't want to collaborate with Marine Le Pen?
Frankly, I'm not so sure. I mean, he's quite a character, you know. I think he's not a big fan of collaborating with anybody. He's not the compromising figure. So I think that's the most important reason, because if you look at it rationally, I mean, he's quite close to Le Pen. He's actually much closer to Le Pen than the center-right Les Républicains. And in the logic of the French parliamentary elections, you know, it's a majority system. So you need to have the absolute majority in the district. So in many cases, it's smarter to just see, okay, who's the strongest candidate of the three parties, and let them have this person run and try to, you know, win from the center and the left. But this system is actually meant for, you know, two political parties. So what we may see is that ultimately Macron, despite the chaos on the right, that his centrist party will weaken, specifically if the left continues so united.
And it's interesting because we're talking about collaborations, parties teaming up. It's also what we see in Parliament, of course, in the ID, in the ECR. But what we see now is that there's a very big group of parties, elected MEPs that do not belong to a party yet. A lot of them are from the AfD, also from Fidesz party. Where do you think they will position themselves? Do you think they will collaborate with ECR, with ID, and how is that collaboration going to look like?
Well, there's a lot of negotiation going on now about this. This week, they were all meeting each other in Brussels, Le Pen and Geert Wilders, and other, you know, right-wing forces. Where it's going to end, there's some rumors that Orban may go to the ECR group. Personally, I think we will, at the end of the day, not see major changes. I think Orban will, in the end, you know, join the group of Le Pen and the Lega in Italy. I think, yeah, the ECR will stay broadly similar as it is today, with Meloni, the Sweden Democrats, the NVA. And yeah, there will be some kind of a deal with maybe von der Leyen or somebody else for the vote on the Commission presidency. But you often hear the media saying, oh, there is a grand coalition in Brussels. But it's not true. There is no coalition. There are constantly changing coalitions, like they have a coalition now for the secret vote on the, you know, on the Commission presidency. But on every separate topic, on every separate legislative file, they try to find a different coalition. And the fact that the right has been strengthened means that they will be more involved than previously. A lot more, I think, because also the ECR is sort of sneaking out of the cordon sanitaire, the boycott against the ECR. But yeah, the plus ça change, they say in French, meaning that the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I think that's the best bet. Yeah.
And then, of course, their parliament is going to shift. We got a lot of new MEPs coming into parliament, but it also means that there's going to be a redistribution of the high positions that are also influencing the policies. Could you please tell more about that? And also, who will get which position now?
Well, Politico, they are very adamant that von der Leyen will be, the Commission president. And of course, it's possible. But I think, she was really a bit of a hate figure in the French election campaign. And I don't find it very likely that Macron will dare to appoint her again. And it is even less likely that Macron would be outvoted because, the leaders will amongst each other have a public vote. And it has happened in the past that the United Kingdom and Orban were outvoted when Jean-Claude Juncker was appointed. But I don't think a French president can be outvoted. France is always seen as more important in France than other countries. So that's not going to happen. Of course, there is not really an alternative. Mario Draghi, perhaps, but then, is he so much more likable? Maybe in France he's more likable, so who knows? And then if you're talking about the other, top jobs, it looks like your former Prime Minister, Scarlett, Mr. Rutte, will be the NATO Secretary General. And this means that one of his rivals for that job, the Prime Minister of Estonia, a lady, Miss Kallas, will likely be the High Representative for Foreign Affairs. Then we have the former Prime Minister of Portugal, a socialist. He's from the south and he's a socialist. So you need all these balance and equilibriums. So he's likely to be the chairman of the European Council. Even if there's an investigation going against him in Portugal, the Portugal justice is investigating if he... what was it again? There was some accusation that he abused his position as prime minister in some very specific file, but he has not been charged, to be honest. But still, the investigation has not yet been closed, so it's a little bit questionable, I would say. And what's those are the four jobs, right?
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
To all of the people that you're calling now, they're either like on the left or center side of the political spectrum, or they're being investigated. Like this guy you mentioned, Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, can they not do a better job at finding people that are actually competent to help us govern Europe?
Absolutely, and that's why I think that, look, I don't want some conservative... I don't expect some conservative libertarian to be appointed to the Commission presidency. But to be fair, we had a clear, support for a more center-right policy, not just because right-wing populists have been winning, but also because the European People's Party, which has also been winning over the last year, already changed and moved to the right. So the one thing that we should not do is to reappoint one of the chief responsible politicians, Ursula von der Leyen, again. She's nominally EPP, but in reality everybody knows that she's a left-green. So the same with Mario Draghi. He's a centralist. Surely we should be able to find in Europe a decent center-right politician, a former government leader, I don't know, like Jan-Peter Balkenende, for example, in the Netherlands, if he would be interested. But there's many other potential candidates that we could think of. Surely in Europe there should be one politician that would better reflect the election result. And maybe the one hope I think that we have is the French parliamentary election. And apparently Team von der Leyen, her advisors, are afraid of that. They are afraid that Macron will not dare to reappoint her. So this is a very interesting space to watch.
So at least Very exciting times ahead of us. Still a lot can happen. And we at Riks going to make sure that you at home are going to stay up to date to the latest developments. For now, I want to thank you, Peter, for being here in the studio. And of course, thank you for you at home for watching this episode. We'll see you next week.